Philadelphia Eagles against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are still 3-point dogs at home despite the absolute collapse of the Philadelphia Eagles down the stretch. So what's your take on this game?
Yeah, it's a fascinating one. Both quarterbacks coming into this game not healthy. We saw Baker kind of limping all over the place in the Carolina game. Jalen Hurts had the dislocated, I want to say, middle finger of his throwing hand.
Yep.
Which looked pretty gnarly. It's weird. It's been weirdly quiet out of Philadelphia this week, where we haven't heard anything about A.J. Brown, really, and he looked in, like, serious pain with the knee injury. He also has a history of knee issues. And then Hurts, I mean, I'm sure they'll just tape that finger to the next one and ride it out. But that is fascinating to me because I do wonder, do they avoid the tush push? Do they avoid design run and zone read and these different elements where Hurts has to hold the ball a lot or do different, hand it up, like all these things where his finger injury could be a factor. Like think about when Justin Herbert was wearing that wonky little contraption for the middle of the year. Like they went away from that stuff. If they were running, it was straight handoff. There was no like the RPO game went way down over that stretch. Things like that. End of the day, we'll get into matchups and stuff. This is totally narrative based. This is the antithesis of PFF analysis. I just don't see how a potential last game for Jason Kelsey, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, maybe Lane Johnson, maybe not those guys, but they're going to get up for it. I don't see how they lose this game.
Yeah, so on paper, I think this is the least interesting game of all of them, and yet because of the storylines and because of the dynamic at play with both teams, I actually think it's fascinating. Like I'm not sure I can predict it in either direction, but I do think it's going to be compelling because of that. It is amazing what's happened to this Philadelphia team. Like the defense has been struggling all season long. It kind of made sense. They had a significant amount of turnover on that side of the ball by design. They were going to go in a different direction at several spots. Some of those players haven't been healthy. Nakobe Dean was supposed to be the anchor in the middle at linebacker, and he's played like 5 games and less than 200 snaps. They've been dragging guys in off the street, just veterans, hoping that it'll fix it. Shaquille Leonard, once he got released by the Colts, Zach Cunningham, Nicholas Morrow, like the linebacker group is a mess. The front four hasn't been generating the pressure that they expected it to, and that's a huge loss. And then the back end, you're getting like the worst versions of both James Bradbury and Darius Slay for more money because you had to re-up Bradbury in the offseason. Just the defense, a disaster. You have already made a coaching change. Like you've tried to pull the pin on the grenade and do the big change. You handed the keys over to Matt Patricia. That hasn't fixed it. So the defensive side, I think, is a mess, and Baker Mayfield and the Bucs offense should be able to have some joy. Then the other side of the ball, number one, that started to collapse as well, and 2, in the process, everybody got hurt. Like A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, Cam Jurgens at right guard all these guys are dealing with something heading into this game. And the Hurts thing is, I've never seen anybody look as nonchalant as he did about, oh, look, my middle finger is like pointed in a different direction. He looked like annoyed that it had happened, not, oh, crap, my finger's wrecked. He was like, of course, that went wrong as well. So, and okay, they popped it back into place. He went back in the game. That, I think, during the time, like that kind of thing can happen. The swelling hasn't happened yet. Like your body hasn't had a time to react to the injury. But that's a dislocated finger on his throwing hand, his middle finger. I mean, you don't want that adding to the woes of an offense that's already not firing on all cylinders. Again, who knows if A.J. Brown is going to be 100%. Devontae Smith, I think all of them will play, but I don't know if they're all going to be the same guys that they are at their best, which means, the potentially the stronger side of this Philadelphia team is it's just working at like 80% capacity against an aggressive Tampa Bay defense that is going to come after them, that is going to force them into making, big plays and executing. And that can be the difference between executing and not, right?
Well, 110%. No, and I think particularly with Philadelphia, where I think they have some fragility within their offensive structure, where, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith account for a massive target share. They don't really have much behind those guys at receiver. Some solid pieces, like Quez Watkins, guys that can make plays, but it's a very concentrated offense. And obviously Dallas Goedert back now from his forearm injury, so he might be a big focal point here. But but it's just like I think it impacts them more than many other teams, where the drop off from their top two to the next guy is as precipitous as any team in the NFL. And like you said, both of those guys are dealing with something. Browns looks more serious. So yeah, it's concerning. It really, really is. Same time, the Bucs pressure rate is bottom 10, I think maybe even bottom 5 for us this year. They are going to be aggressive. Todd Bowles, he does step it up come playoff time and dial some stuff up. He is still as creative as any defensive play caller in the league, but I think they will find their spots and pick their spots. And then the flip side for me, the tackles in Tampa have been awesome. We know Tristan Wirfs is elite. Luke Goedecki's been great, but that interior is very susceptible. And I think you are going to see a Fletcher Cox, Jalen Carter, just really tee off of the middle. And Baker's mobility, I think, is going to be limited. As bad as the defense has been, if Darius Slay can get back and give Mike Evans some problems, and then you get that pressure from the interior, I think that could be a nightmarish outing for Tampa's offense as well.
Yeah. Also, Jalen Hurts has been typically for his entire career very good against the blitz. Like, he's not a quarterback that wilts under that kind of pressure. He finds the ways to expose it. He finds the gaps in behind. He's able to avoid the pressure even when it arrives and make some plays despite the blitz. So it's an interesting matchup in that way. DeAndre Swift, by the way, is another guy from that Eagles offense that's dealing with something coming into this game. So like every significant player at the skill position players and their quarterback and a guy in the offensive line are all dealing with some kind of injury coming into the game, that's significant enough to have them missing practice time midweek, the practice you want them all out there. I think it's a pretty significant issue. One last issue, or one last variable heading into this game, the current weather for this game is for rain, and not, light rain. Moderate rain is how it's being termed. I don't want to say all bets are off because we're about to make make calls, but you introduce significant rain into a game like this, we are radically ramping up the variance that's about to take place.
For sure. And I think that would skew in Philly's direction. Tampa's run game obviously has been, a problem for a couple of years now. And Philly's run defense, not quite as elite as it's been, but still good. Tampa does have a good run defense, but I trust Philly's run offense. But at the same time, though, I really do think the lack of, the conflict they can create for ends, reading his own read, and all the stuff that Jalen Hurts adds, just the gravity he has that maybe goes away. But nevertheless, I would if it's a running based game for both teams, I'd be even more confident in Philly than I already am.
I also think that, people have been asking me for weeks, is it time to jump back on the Baker Mayfield wagon? And I've been saying, no, I'm out. I'm permanently out on Baker Mayfield. He had his opportunities. I backed him for too long and I got burned, and now I am done. I am not buying back into Baker Mayfield. So, number one, Baker Mayfield this year has 24 turnover-worthy plays and 10 interceptions. So he's already been riding his luck a little bit, right? Number two, adding rain to a Baker Mayfield game feels like you are dramatically increasing the number of turnover-worthy plays from that game from Baker Mayfield. So I'm not being suckered in again. Everyone's going to be like, oh, the Eagles are collapsing. They're in crisis mode. And yeah, they might be. I'm not buying it. Baker's going to make a mistake. When crunch time happens, he's going to go back to being the Baker Mayfield that got him run out of Cleveland and run out of Carolina and run out of the Rams. And it's not going to happen. So that's what my point. Tampa Bay is not covering 3, even at home. Philadelphia is going to cover it.
I'm with you on the cover. I'm mostly with you on the Baker. I think he earned himself a decent little deal. The biggest thing for me was bringing his pressure to sack rate way, way down. And I think you saw reasons why that happened. But yeah, I don't see him becoming an upper echelon quarterback. He'll get I don't even know about Geno. I think he'll be even a little bit less than a Geno deal, which, credit to him. He earned something. But yeah, they lead the league in play action this year. And he still does. He puts the ball in harm's way too often. And we're falling in love with the winner of the NFC South. Let's pump the brakes. It's the NFC South. It's one of the worst divisions I think I can remember in my lifetime. So let's, But congrats to the Bucs. They won the division. Congrats.
I'm being a bit facetious, but my point generally is that, look, I think Baker Mayfield has been riding his luck a little bit this season, and if that swings against him even a little bit, one play, one turnover, these are the plays that determine the outcome of postseason games. And if Baker doesn't have a really good, clean game, which gets incredibly hard once it's wet, once the conditions are sloppy, and I think you're right, like they need to pass the ball more than the Eagles do to win this game. It's just starting to mount up in a way that you're like, I don't have a ton of confidence in Baker Mayfield making that happen, even in what has been a pretty good season for him. And I do think more clutch than he's been at any other point in his career. Like he has made a lot of clutch plays this season. I still feel like that's a lot to ask from him to make this game go in their direction.
Yep, no doubt about it. I mean, the Eagles defense has struggled. They really, really have.
Yeah.
I just think, it's quietly, too, not only Slay coming back, but Avonte Maddox, their issue's been in the slot. I mean, they were the worst team in the NFL for a while there. However, Sidney Brown, the rookie, who wasn't a full-time player, but did have the 96-yard pick six a couple weeks ago, and Reed Blankenship, who really has been the guy in the back end that keeps everything in front of him. It's why you added Kevin Byard to the deadline. You now have your top three corners. They'll figure it out, but you could poke some holes. I think they're going to do enough.
Yeah, I mean, it is a game where you can't have confidence in either team. I mean, Philadelphia is genuinely in crisis right now. That defense is awful, and it's missing even more players. Everybody of significance on the offensive side is hurt, and as you said, they have some schematic issues as well. And yet Tampa Bay is they barely got a winning record in a bad division. Their quarterback is Baker Mayfield. There's a lot to not love about them as well. And their defense has got vulnerabilities. I don't think you could be confident in either team making this happen, but obviously somebody's got to win it. And I think ultimately my money would be on the Eagles, even as 3-point favorites. But Tampa Bay winning this game would not shock me in the slightest.
No, I agree. I'm with you on Eagles -3, but I wouldn't be surprised. It's not a confident pick. That's for sure.
So you're going, we're all going with the Eagles to cover 3. Okay, Steve's also gone with that direction as well.